On the morning of August 31st, 2003, a quiet stretch of desert outside Las Cruces, New Mexico, became the center of a horrific discovery. A local resident driving past an old dump site noticed something unusual lying near the edge of the abandoned landfill. At first, it looked like discarded debris, just another shape lost in the sand. But as he slowed down, the outline became unmistakable. It was a human body. A young woman, face down, motionless. Authorities arrived within minutes. What they found immediately signaled that this was no accident, no tragic case of someone collapsing in the heat. The victim, 22-year-old Katie Sepitch, was naked from the waist down. Her pants were positioned awkwardly between her legs, as if they had been pulled off and discarded in haste. Burn injuries marked her back and her arm, the scorched patches indicating someone had tried to set her body on fire. But the burns were incomplete, and investigators quickly determined the attempt had failed. The closer they looked, the darker the picture became. There were signs of strangulation injuries around her neck that pointed directly to a violent struggle. Katie's hands told their own story: scratches, abrasions, and damage to her fingers, all consistent with someone desperately trying to fight off an attacker. One detective later said the defensive wounds made it clear that Katie didn't go quietly. It didn't take long for investigators to reach their first major conclusion. Katie had not been killed in the desert. She had been murdered elsewhere, then transported to this remote site where the killer attempted to burn her remains in a crude effort to erase evidence. While police worked the scene, Katie's family was spiraling into fear. Her roommate had called her mother Jane, saying Katie hadn't come home and couldn't be reached. That worry quickly escalated into dread as hours passed with no word. By that afternoon, the worst possible truth arrived. Katie's father was brought to the morgue to confirm the body. One look was all it took. Later, he said the moment was so devastating. He felt like he couldn't breathe. Katie Sepitch grew up in Carlsbad, New Mexico, as the oldest of 3 siblings. A role she embraced with natural confidence and a sense of responsibility that shaped every part of her life. Friends and family described her as lively, intelligent, and grounded. Someone who combined ambition with an easy warmth that made people feel instantly comfortable around her. She excelled academically, eventually earning a business degree from New Mexico State University. Her next goal was already in motion. She planned to begin her MBA program that fall, a step she believed would open the door to a leadership career she had long envisioned. Katie supported herself by working as a waitress at a local Mexican restaurant in Las Cruces. Co-workers remembered her as outgoing, dependable, and universally liked. Someone who handled long shifts with a positive attitude and a genuine interest in the people around her. That balance of drive and personality defined her daily life, making her future feel both promising and firmly within reach. Her relationship with Joe Bischoff began at New Mexico State University, where the two met through mutual friends. What started as a casual friendship quickly deepened, and their connection grew stronger as they spent more time together. Katie's family welcomed Joe, seeing him as kind, attentive, and a stable presence who seemed to share her long-term goals. Katie even confided in her mother that she believed Joe was the man she would eventually marry. They had already begun discussing early wedding ideas, a detail that made her family feel confident about the direction of her life. Over the Labor Day weekend, Joe returned to Las Cruces, and Katie was especially excited to spend time with him and their circle of friends. That anticipation shaped the evening of August 30th, when Katie joined Joe and others for bar hopping before eventually heading to a house gathering. It would become the final night of her life, marking the beginning of the events that would unravel in the hours to come. Katie Sepitch was last seen leaving a house party on the night of August 30th, 2003. After a long evening of bar hopping with friends, including her boyfriend, Joe Bischoff. The night had seemed ordinary, filled with laughter and the casual camaraderie of young adults enjoying a holiday weekend. When the party ended, Katie departed alone, and her roommates, Veronica and Tracy, assumed she had safely returned home. They went about their own routines, unaware that those final steps would mark the beginning of a tragic sequence that none of them could have anticipated. By the following afternoon, concern began to mount. Around 2 p.m., Tracy called Katie's mother, Jan, asking if she had spoken with her daughter. This call immediately alarmed Jane, as Katie and her mother spoke multiple times every day. When Jan realized Katie could not be reached by phone or through friends, a sense of panic took hold. The family urged Tracy to file a missing persons report, initiating the official response that would set investigators into motion. Meanwhile, Veronica explained that she and Joe had fallen asleep at the party house, leaving Katie to make her way home alone. Police began interviewing witnesses, retracing the route Katie would have taken from the party to her home, which was only about a mile away. Investigators discovered that Katie had left behind essential belongings, including her purse, phone, and house keys, a detail that intensified concerns for her safety. Outside Katie's residence, officers found her shoes placed near the bedroom window. Footprints in the gravel suggested she had attempted to climb through the window after forgetting her keys. Additional markings indicated a struggle had taken place in that area, evidence that the events leading to her disappearance were violent and abrupt. As the search unfolded, law enforcement was simultaneously alerted to a body discovered in the desert, lying near a remote dump site. At that point, the identity of the body remained unknown, leaving both the police and Katie's family in uncertainty. Hours later, the fear and dread crystallized into unbearable grief. Katie's father traveled to the morgue, where he confirmed the worst possible outcome. The young woman who had left the party the night before was gone. The moment was described as unbearably painful, a defining instant that would forever mark the beginning of the family's long, tragic ordeal. Following the discovery of Katie Sepitch's body, investigators immediately began reconstructing the final hours of her life, focusing on the party she had attended the night before. Approximately 40 people had been present, and detectives systematically interviewed friends, roommates, and attendees to establish a timeline and identify potential witnesses. Early interviews revealed a significant detail. Katie had reportedly seen her boyfriend, Joe Bischoff, kissing another woman, which led to a heated argument between the two. Strikingly, Joe did not mention this confrontation during his initial police interview, nor did he inform Katie's parents. Detectives noted several inconsistencies in Joe's account. He claimed he attempted to contact Katie after the argument, but he was aware she had left her phone at the party. He also stated that he and friends had searched for her that night, but the specifics of their efforts remained unclear and uncorroborated. Adding to suspicions, Joe refused to provide a DNA sample and immediately retained legal counsel. These factors initially positioned him as a primary person of interest in the case. Police sought alternative methods to verify his involvement. Investigators collected DNA from Katie's bedsheets, knowing that Joe's DNA would be present due to consensual intercourse earlier that night. When tested, his DNA did not match the sample obtained from beneath Katie's fingernails, removing him from suspicion. This revelation redirected detectives toward other avenues. Investigators examined tire tracks near the desert dump site where the body had been found, determining the vehicle was likely a pickup truck. Additionally, Kata's rings, including the engagement ring given to her by Joe, were missing, indicating theft as part of the crime. About a year later, police explored leads related to a similar rape and arson attack in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Two men, Gregorio Morales and Juan Neo, were identified and arrested. However, their DNA did not match the evidence from Katie's murder, and they were eventually convicted for the Wisconsin case only. Detectives faced a significant legal obstacle. At the time, New Mexico law prohibited collecting DNA from a suspect at arrest. It could only be obtained after conviction. Without a match in the system, the investigation stalled. For Katie's family, this reality was terrifying. The person responsible for their daughter's death remained free, a potential threat to others. The case reached a dead end, leaving both law enforcement and the Sepitch family in a state of prolonged uncertainty and anguish. The investigation into Katie Sepitch's murder had stalled for years, leaving her family desperate for answers. That breakthrough finally came on December 18, 2006, more than 3 years after her death, when the state crime lab identified a DNA match. The sample under Katie's fingernails belonged to 26-year-old Gabriel Avila, a man with an extensive criminal record who had been released from prison shortly before the murder. Investigators confirmed that Avila had no prior connection to Katie, establishing that she had been the victim of a stranger attack. Further details of Avila's criminal history painted a troubling pattern. In November 2003, less than 3 months after Katie's murder, Avila broke into a home occupied by 2 female college students while armed with a knife. The women locked themselves in a bathroom and called 911, prompting Avila to flee. He was subsequently convicted of armed burglary with intent to commit sexual assault. However, he was released on bond while awaiting trial and disappeared, only to be rearrested in November 2004. It was not until his return to prison that authorities were able to collect his DNA. Nearly 2 years later, that sample was finally processed and entered into the system, producing the match to the evidence from Katie's case. When detectives confronted Avila in prison, they presented him with tangible proof of his crime, Katie's engagement ring, which had been recovered from his pickup truck. Faced with the evidence, Avila confessed in full. He recounted the night of the murder in chilling detail, explaining that he had been out purchasing drugs while his wife was away when he noticed Katie walking home. He approached her twice and offered assistance, but when she struggled to climb through her bedroom window after forgetting her keys, he attacked. Avila admitted to raping Katie and strangling her to death, describing how she had fought back and how he could not stop. After the murder, Avila transported Katie's body to the remote desert dump site. There, he poured gasoline over her and attempted to set her on fire in a failed effort to destroy evidence. His confession provided closure to law enforcement's long-held questions about the circumstances of Katie's final hours and delivered the long-awaited identification of her killer. For the Sepitch family, it was a painful but necessary step toward justice, confirming the identity of the man who had taken their daughter's life. Section 6. Justice. Katie's law and the legacy she left behind, approx. 330 to 380 words. Summary. 200 to 300 words. The final section covers the aftermath of Avila's confession and the Sepitch family's fight for justice. In 2007, Avila was sentenced to 69 years in prison. During sentencing, he apologized and begged for leniency, but Katie's father insisted that the man who killed their daughter should never walk free again. Katie's mother, Jan, spoke about the family's ongoing grief and their determination to move forward for the sake of their 2 remaining children. This section then explains how the family turned their devastation into purposeful advocacy. Learning that Avila could have been identified earlier if New Mexico had allowed DNA collection at arrest, the family lobbied tirelessly for legal reform. Their efforts resulted in the passage of Katie's Law in 2006, requiring DNA collection from anyone arrested for a violent crime. In 2010, the law became the foundation for a federal standard, and today more than 31 states have similar legislation. This section closes by honoring Katie's life, the enduring pain of her loss, and the profound national impact her case has had on criminal justice reform.